What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, this is 4K Motoring, and today is about the 1 week period that I've had the Google Pixel Watch, and I want to tell you my experiences with it and what my overall thoughts are since receiving it. Stay tuned, let's get to it. Now, overall, as I said, it's been pretty much exactly 2 weeks since I received the Google Pixel Watch. It has been, overall, a very solid watch. Now, I was a bit hesitant. I came from a Fossil Gen 6, which I got a year ago when it came out, and that had the newly updated Snapdragon 4100 Plus processor. In the last about 2 years, there's been a pretty drastic increase in, at least the Android Wear side, of the basically watch specs, the performance, and the chipsets inside of them. You guys may remember back when the Moto 360 came out back in early 2014. That was when Google was still owning Motorola, so that was kind of Google's first smartwatch. They really were involved in the development of that quite a bit. We had a Texas Instruments processor in that particular watch. I had one of those, and I got that right the day it was released as well, and I've basically kept up with the smartwatches since then. I really liked that first gen Moto 360. There was a couple issues with the way the band hooked on. There was a couple issues with it just lagging a little bit. But really, for what it was able to do, it was about perfect. I loved exactly what it was able to do. The first generation of Wear OS that came with that watch, it was great. I then upgraded to the second generation Moto 360 when it came out, and they had a much better solution for the watch band on it. It was a very typical watch band, and a lot that I've had since with the Fossil generations, they've all had a similar type of quick detach, just very universal quick detach watch bands. From the Fossil second gen smartwatch, we had a slightly upgraded processor, and we started getting into the Snapdragon processors after that really were lackluster. There wasn't a whole lot that advanced much past that kind of second generation of watch. We hit kind of a plateau, and then we stayed there for quite a while. Now, about 2 to 3 years ago, 2019, 2020, the Snapdragon 3100 processor was released. And that was the first real big mass market processor for watches that was released in quite a while. And it really wasn't a big improvement. It was basically the 2100 processor that we had for a couple years with a small coprocessor added onto it for low power functions, just to increase kind of that always on display, some of those background functions, and make the battery last a little bit longer, which is useful. But it didn't really improve the speed of the watch. That was getting laggier and laggier as the OS developed and that the apps developed. It was a very bloated kind of operating system. Once that Snapdragon 4100 processor came out, that was a game changer. This processor was leaps and bounds faster than the stuff that came before it, and that Fossil Gen 6 was very quick. At the same time, Samsung with their Exynos processors, their in-house brand, were starting to do kind of the same thing of competing with Snapdragon to make a processor that runs really their own Tizen type software that they had for a while, and increasing performance kind of year after year from there. Really in the last 3 years has been the most dramatic change. That leads us up to the Pixel Watch that does not have that latest generation processor of the Wear 4100 Plus. It does not have the latest generation of Exynos processor. It actually has about a year old processor, maybe 2 years old at this point, but it still works great. Now, the Wear OS 3, the operating system in general that we're running, was a combined effort. Google got with a bunch of Fossil engineers a couple years ago. They hired a bunch from Fossil of their smartwatch engineers and brought them over to Google. We all thought a Pixel Watch was coming at that point. Google made an announcement that they weren't going to release a Pixel Watch until it really met the expectations of what a Pixel product should be, a Pixel branded product should be. We saw Google acquire Fitbit about a year ago, and the Fitbit Sense was the first one that came out after that. Wasn't necessarily fully designed by Google, but it was their first release since Google took over. So we're kind of curious what direction we were headed to there. And with the Pixel 6 line, we saw a joint effort between Google and Samsung in basically fighting Qualcomm, Snapdragon, and trying to build kind of a big enough empire, economies of scale sort of things, and different performance to rival both Apple and the leading Qualcomm stuff, that now Google got together with Samsung mostly to design Wear OS 3, which took a lot of features of Tizen, kind of the background, how it functioned, and wrap that up into the new version of Android Wear OS, the 3.0. This has been pretty phenomenal. Now, running that year-old Samsung processor, obviously with the design and input of Samsung in the creation of Wear OS 3, it clearly works on their processor very well. And this processor, even though it's not the latest version, it handles all the functions of this watch very well and even gives reasonable battery life. One of my biggest concerns when I bought this Pixel Watch was going to be the battery life. Now, I've been used to basically every watch I've had up to this point, from all of the Moto 360 watches up through the latest generations of Fossils with their Sports Smartwatch and their Gen 6. I've had about a 24-hour battery life. That has been very constant and very common for all the Android Wear watches I've had thus far, and that's been fine for me. I charge my watch every night just like I charge my phone. I put them both on the charger when I go to sleep. I take them off when I wake up. They get me through all day. And that is exactly what I wanted out of a watch. This Pixel Watch delivers exactly that. As I've said before, I work 12-hour shifts, so 13 to 14 hours depending on, when I take the watch off, go to work, and come home. In that time frame, in that 12 to 14-hour window, with reasonable usage, doing tap to pay, using flashlight functions, responding to messages, taking a phone call or two, some stopwatch, or very light sort of app usage, I'm at 50% pretty much exactly after 12 to 14 hours. And that has been the same with the Fossil watch, and that is the same with this Pixel Watch. So absolutely, 24 hours is a very doable thing. If you can do 12 to 14 hours on 50%, obviously you should be able to do 26, 27 hours probably total on a full battery from 100 to 0%. But that's good enough for me. Let's talk about the functions of the watch. Now, honestly, I didn't need much more than my Fossil Gen 6 could provide. That watch was $250 to $300, somewhere in that range, and it really could provide all the features I needed. It did the text messages, it displayed and could respond to text messages, it could take and receive phone calls, it had a flashlight feature, which I used more than I ever thought I would. It had the NFC tap to pay, Google Pay. Use that all the time. It is definitely more secure than using a card. If you've not set that up yet, I would recommend it. And really, you stopwatch, I look at the weather, Google Fit to track, mountain biking or some activity I do, not really daily exercise, but some outdoor exercise. And I often do control the music playing, either through headphones or on my Google Home system. With all my speakers, I can control from my watch, and that's always been a pretty cool function as well. That's really about it. I don't use any other apps. I haven't downloaded any other apps. Anything else I've put on the watch or that came on the watch, I've disabled or gotten rid of, so there's no bloatware on there. And that's really about it. What I don't use is sleep tracking or a lot of the high-end exercise features that some of these watches come with. The whole UI of this watch, the new 3.0, has been very smooth. I've been very impressed by it. It is a little bit more pleasing to look at than the older generation, the 2.0 version of Android Wear. It doesn't really give you any more features, I don't think, but it is a little bit smoother to use. The really non-user programmable buttons, you have some choice over some button functions, and different buttons have some different quick press, double tap, long press sort of features you can kind of customize, but you're very restricted to what apps you can use in there, which is kind of disappointing. This does have the full Google Assistant, which is awesome. I do turn off voice detection on my watch for the Google keyword, as in my home, I have Google Home speakers everywhere. My phone listens. I have so many things that have the assistant built into them. I don't need the voice assistant on my watch, the voice activation of the assistant. I'm fine with pressing and holding a key for a minute if I want my watch specifically to answer. But for the most part, I've got my phone and my house to do that for me. The animations are very smooth, and they fit a watch very well. When they come up, it's not a flat line, it is a curve that fit the screen, and I think that's a cool touch. It is largely a gimmick. It's not needed. The stuff before was fine, but this is just a little bit more pleasing to look at. And they've gotten the background to be very dark on most of this, so it really makes this round screen look a lot better with those big bezels. For some reason, the Moto 360, the original one, had no bezels, had that little flat tire at the bottom, but no bezels. And since then, we've decided we just want massive bezels and small screens. Even the watches that seem to have different sizes tend to have the same size screen, which is kind of disappointing. I'm hoping that's a trend that goes away soon. I'd like to have, screens at least that fill out the watch, but we'll see what comes the next couple of years as far as that goes. The screen is very bright, and because it has that curved glass edge, it is very comfortable to swipe on. It feels really good. I'm a little concerned over longevity, like I said. I don't know how durable that's going to be. I might end up getting one of the rubber bumpers for it. If you've not seen these things, I'll put one down in the description just so you can click on it and just see what's out there. But there are some external rubber kind of bezels for these watches at this point that might help it a little bit with screen breaking. Everything else is pretty easy to use. The tap to pay feature of this watch is a whole lot more reliable and quicker to use than the Fossil counterpart for whatever reason that was. And everything just seems to work. I've had no connectivity issues with this watch and my phone. Obviously, I'm using a Google Pixel phone. They should talk together pretty well. And there was an update. As soon as I took this out of the box, there was an update that probably fixed a lot of that stuff. But it has been a super reliable, super comfortable, and just effective watch, which I'm pretty impressed with. So do I have anything bad to say about this watch? Well, there's a couple things I would like to change. First off, I really want bigger batteries in these watches. I see no reason why we're sticking with these 300 milliamp hour batteries in pretty much every generation of watch I've used lately. Why can't I have a 500 milliamp hour battery? I know I'm getting 24 hours out, but if I go away for a weekend, I would like, 2-3 days of possible charge. And if there's a diminished feature, if I could turn some stuff off and get that, I think I could probably push 36 hours, maybe 2 days if I turn a lot of stuff off. There are some extended battery saver modes on here that'll probably extend the use of the watch quite a bit for minimal function only. But I'd like to have one that can respond to messages and do basic watch stuff like I use, not heavy workout stuff, but basic watch stuff for 2 or 3 days. That would be fantastic. Secondly, the overall size of this, it is very comfortable. I'll admit it is very comfortable. But I do like the more robust style of, like my Fossil Gen 6, something with the lugs, something with the metal band around the outside. Even the new Apple Series 8 Ultra or whatever it is, the new Apple Watch Ultra, it has a very robust design, and that's something that fits more my lifestyle. I kind of bash these things around quite a bit, work on vehicles, go mountain biking, stuff that exposes the watch to, bumping into stuff, the occasional crash. And I'd like something that at least is more protected from the factory. And I think that's something, maybe Google will have a Watch Active or something, or Watch Pro in their current terminology, I don't know. That's probably going to be a second generation function, I would imagine. Something I would love to see. Lastly, a cheaper price I think is pretty necessary of this watch. Now they wanted it to be premium, and everything on it feels really good. It's a stainless steel chassis instead of aluminum. Everything on it is very well built. So for the price, I get it. It's not bad. It's not a bad price point for these watches at $350. When you can get a Fossil Gen 6 that is pretty much the same in terms of specs and features, and even looking at some of the Samsung later equivalents that run mostly Android Wear, less Tizen, but there's still some overlap. This is probably just a little bit overpriced. I would say if they can get this base Fossil watch down to $299, would probably be a more compelling product. The LTE version is something I've never used on a watch. If anybody out there has one of the LTE watches, I'd love to know how that affects battery life. I'm thinking that sort of connectivity, one, you'd have a pretty weak signal, and two, it would kill the battery life a lot faster. I might be wrong. I really would have liked Google to lean a little bit more heavily on the Pixel branding for this watch. And by that I mean Pixel has always been the AI smartphone, the one that really is there to assist you and provide that sort of kind of advanced computer algorithm sort of thing, that advanced AI that really helps you out and is the smart smartphone. I wanted this to be the smart smartwatch, something that Google found a way to make a little bit more advanced as far as its functionality, maybe its utility to you. I don't know exactly how they could have done that, but something that really leaned heavily on that feature. It works well in Wear OS 3, but it doesn't add anything different. It is more of a Fitbit-based watch, and I know that's something a lot of people leaned on a lot. The sensors are controlled by Fitbit quite a bit. The heart rate sensor, the every second heart rate sensor, is kind of cool. I actually do like that. I know it came with the free subscription period for the upgraded Fitbit app. I don't use that because you're still paying for it, and it's just giving you the first couple months free, and you have to cancel it if you want to get rid of it. I've never used Fitbit before. I've always used Google Fit for my things. I have Google Fit on this watch, and I tried just using Google Fit and basically deleting Fitbit. It had a couple issues with some of the sensors and not turning things on and being a little bit wonky. So I ended up having to download the Fitbit app, not the premium, just the regular Fitbit app. And everything functions really well on this watch, and the app is pretty easy to use as well. I still do all my fitness tracking with Google Fit, so I'm still tracking, my bike rides and runs, that sort of thing, with Google Fit, and that seems to be working just fine. So you can go in and set this watch up to be very functional for Google Fit, as well as getting a little bit of extra information from Fitbit. So those are my thoughts, both good and bad, about the first generation of the Google Pixel Watch. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys more excited about this being a health-centered, health-focused, fitness watch that's also a daily wearable? Or were you more hoping for a companion device, a more smart, somehow more Pixel-like Pixel Watch? Let me know in the comments below if you guys have one of these and are having any issues with battery life or seeing any superb battery life. I'd love to hear about that. If there's any particular apps that you guys are using that somehow provide functionality that you think would benefit everybody, let me know those in the comments below. I'd love to hear about them. Again, I don't really use any specific apps, but I just love the basic Android and what it provides. Again, if you have any questions about the Pixel Watch and its features, let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them the best I can. Otherwise, we'll be here with whatever's next on 4K Motoring. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.